the second part of this afternoon, to the second panel. It's on non-conformist practices in design, and attending is Palace of Unlearning, Bernadette Krejs, Wenke Schladitz and Christoph Wagner, and for the discussion Elio Choquette will join the discussion. This panel will be chaired by Theo Deutinger. He is on my left side here. He's an architect, an urbanist, and curator. He is founder and head of the department, TD, a practice that combines architecture and urban design with analytic research. With his office, he works at all levels, from global planning to architecture to graphic design and curatorial works. Deutinger is known for his theoretical writings on the transformation of European urban culture and his publications such as The Handbook of Tyranny and Joy and Fear. His work has been shown at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam in 2017, in the Storefront for Architecture New York in 2019, in the Swiss Architecture Museum in Basel, and on other places like here in Architekturhaus. Theo lives here in Austria, and he works here also, and has different studios where he's going to work. Theo Deutinger, I want to give now the word to you, and you're the panel leader, so to say.
Yeah, please. Thank you for the introduction. And yes, I'm very thankful that you invited me to host this panel. I just want to start with the first speakers. I'm happy to introduce Wenke Schladitz and Christoph Wagner, who will give a short lecture on two projects, I think, in Berlin. Both are practicing architects in Berlin. Since 2009, they have been designing houses and spaces in their Berlin studio that explore new ways of living together and building community. Over the last years, they have mainly focused on designing spaces that are accessible and accommodating for vulnerable groups like LGBTQIA+ people. And in addition, they aim for shifting their practice to prioritize adaptive reuse strategies over new construction. So please, the floor is yours. Wenke and Christoph from Berlin.
Hello. So Wenke is here. You have to stand up. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation to Sophie and Carolina and Niklas and all the others who are involved. What we want to do today is we want to show you two projects of ours, and we also want to talk a little bit about what it means being working as architect with these kind of projects. We would like to show you, I would like to start to show you the LOVO house that has been completed in 2018 in Berlin, and not so much only about the architecture, also about the making of. So how did it start, and what was our part in this process? But I think we've been showing this project and other projects a couple of times, and my feeling is it's really it's getting harder. The times are getting harder, and when I read the news, you all read the news, what's going on in Hungary, you know what's going on here, the right-wing shifts almost all over the world, in Germany, in Austria, in Hungary. And today I heard on the radio it's the Day Against Homophobia, the International Day, and Transphobia. And that was founded, or it celebrates the anniversary of 35 years that homosexuality is not declared a disease anymore by the WHO organization. So I really think we are part, as designers or architects, we are part of the whole, or not, we are not part, but we have the possibility to be part of the protest. I think there must be protest against this, or at least there must be a position against this right-wing shift, because we are not, discrimination doesn't make sense. That was our 80-year-old host in the hotel at the breakfast told us today, when she asked, what kind of festival are you here for? And we explained to her, and then she said, we said, yeah, it's against discrimination at the end. And she said, this word shouldn't exist. It doesn't make sense. That was really touching, and I think she is so right. And now I want to go to the, how can I go forward with this? Oh, this is the... to tell you about the circumstances in 2014 when we started the LOVO project. Berlin, of course, has been the center for lesbian and gay people for almost 100 years, when they wanted to live their life without repression. That was a center for quite a time. There had been like high seasons in the 20s and in the 70s with protests. And now you think these times are probably over, but I'm not so sure about that. Because homophobia, we all know that, the numbers are still high. There's a lot of discrimination against queer people in many ways. This is a statistic from 2021. I just double-checked yesterday, so it's at least this direction where it's going at the moment. I think it doesn't have to go always like this, and I think we are part of. We can really be part of bringing this arrow down, because, as I said, it doesn't make sense. In 2014, when we were, the situation was that a lot of refugees came from. Mainly from Syria, like almost 1 million to Germany. And that was like really the occupying news at this time. And at the same time, a lot of like trans or queer people from this cultural background came to Berlin, and there's been a lot of harassment within these the shelters. So they thought they're free now in Germany, but they were not free. They had to realize that there's a lot of violence against them in their own communities. And having this or keeping this in mind, it just happened that in 2014 we could get hold of a little lot, a little site close to it's the Bahnhof Ostkreuz in Berlin. It's a very central, it's a very attractive area. And we were thinking of what to do with this site, develop another co-op housing project that we did before. And but having this political situation in mind, we thought, well, probably we can do something for refugees, or even for like this intersectional, discriminated group of queer people who are refugees. So this is the area we are talking about. It's in Friedrichshain. There's a lot of cafes, very like an alternative neighborhood. So, and we asked ourselves, what is the question, what is really needed? So I always want to come back to this question, because I think this is very important for us as designers and architects to ask ourselves, what is really needed in our practice? Are we doing this because some client is asking us to do this, or is this something that the society really needs? And when we asked this question to ourselves, we thought, yeah, let's try to make a house for yeah, as I said, for gay refugees. And of course, you cannot do this yourself. We were looking for partners. And at this time in Berlin, so these are houses for gay, lesbian, or the queer community that will be built at the end of this year, or even finished at the end of this year. So at least 5 houses in Berlin. At this time, 2014, it was only 1 house. It was built by the Schwulenberatung Berlin. It's an organization that cares for more than 40 years for the needs of the queer community. And they started to build houses because they said we need obviously space for people in our community that need assisted living, or when it comes to getting older, like not an elderly home, but kind of these assisted shared apartments. So we talked to these people and they were very open. And of course we were looking for a bank for financing, and we had this lot. And then we were looking for the program. Our idea at this time was, since it's a very small site, we have to generate as much space as possible for this group we had in mind. But the people with more experience, like as I showed you here, it's like the leaders of the Schwulenberatung, and they said, no, we have to keep in mind when our goal is integrating, we have to mix, we have to really find a program that brings different users together. So this is a program of the house that we generated, or we then developed together with the Schwulenberatung. On the upper 2 floors, there's like 3 regular apartments to rent. And funny enough, it's for 6 years now, it's always like heterosexual people who are renting these apartments. We have 4 apartments with shared apartments for, it's like it's not assisted living, but it's people who cannot live individually at their own. They need some assistance by social workers. And in the ground floor, there's the offices for the social worker. It's 7 or 8 of them. There's a small cafe. It's a café transfer. And there's another little storefront that is this is just rented out to the neighborhood. Yeah. So again, the overall idea is mixing, sharing, integrating. Yeah, just to give you one other example, that's what is meant to be quality housing for refugees in Berlin. So poor refugees, poor architects as well. They could implement some color at the end at least. And as just Wenke said, she passed by this building a couple of weeks ago and she said there's like, what, a 3-meter wall around it now. So you at least don't see it much. So then we, after 2 years of finding the program and getting the financing, we started with the building finally. So took a big breath and thought, wow, now everything is going well. And then, of course, this is the reality we are living in the building sector. Who is doing the work down there? It's again it's not the one who is standing here surveying. This is like the Germans and looking down what the people from, in our case, Serbia, are doing at 5 degrees plus, like folding wet iron. So this is our reality. I think we have to keep this in mind as well. Again, this is the LOVO house. And I go quickly through some details. We wanted to make the facade open, and for us it was absolutely important to give each inhabitant, each room, a balcony. And you see, this is a very, very small, narrow balcony, but it is your private open space. More what was not possible with the city planning, so this was already a big discussion with city planning to get a balcony that stretches over the whole facade, which is not typical in Berlin. And here you see the café transfer. It's a very important part to connect with the neighborhood and also to give people who live in the building the opportunity to work there, like by the means of 2 hours a week to get into the process of, or into working or daily life routine. Very quickly, the connecting with urban realm was important for us, as well as the connecting within open and outside spaces, because this lot is only 16 meters wide, and we wanted to always enhance the feeling of space, or to give. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's not much space you can work with as architect in the terms of when it comes to money, because there are a lot of settings you have to be economically wise to work with the space, but you have the circulation space. So you have the staircase, you have the walkthrough, and this is what you can work with, and can try to make this a bit more attractive. And also you have other possibilities to our aim was this should not feel like an institution. So you leave your room, you go to a corridor, then you open the door to the next corridor, and everybody knows the smell of a hospital or an institution, and the sounds and the clicking of the fireproof doors and everything. We thought, no, we don't want this. We want an open space. We believe in the atmospheric quality of an open space. We found this open staircase very appropriate for our approach for an architecture for people who are not in a very stable psychological state. And we try to avoid dead ends as much as we could. So this staircase is not ending nowhere. It leads to a corridor. It's called Laubengang. You have probably the same term here in Austria. It's an open corridor for, say, circulation. And this is the one that gives access to the 3 apartments in the upper floors that actually are pretty expensive in rent, and they have to co-finance a little bit the other floor. So that's the concept. I hope nobody is here who is renting, because it's not openly communicated, this concept. So even if people don't go there, they know this staircase doesn't end nowhere. It's always thinking about destinations, thinking about circles, like combining inside, outside. And yeah, of course, it had to look a little bit more delicate to get these high rents in the upper 2 floors. And again, I think these pictures show a little bit the atmospheric qualities of the space. There is a tree, this chestnut tree, just going along the staircase, and it's just beautiful light. From the kitchen, you open the door, you are like inside, outside immediately. This is a floor plan of one of the 4 shared or assisted shared apartments for 7 to 8 people. And for us, it was extremely important to deal with this very difficult layout of an apartment. It's a big apartment, 180 square meter, and we had a diagonal access to a rectangular. So it's very hard to deal with this. But it was fixed where the staircase has to be. There was no option. And we wanted to avoid the dead end. So we said, okay, the corridor has to lead somewhere. And so it leads to a small lounge on the other side. So wherever, in whichever space you live, in whichever room you live, you have access to both, to the urban side of the house, to the garden side, to both directions of the sun. And another principle that we even more we could realize more sophisticated in the next project is the circularity. So, or is always giving choices. So when you live in this space, you can of course use the corridor to enter the staircase, but you could also sneak over the balcony. So always giving these choices as a principle of of the way we found this layout important for these kind of people. And the last sentence before I hand over to Wenke, our belief is to create communicative spaces, and this is our aim, is when retreat and intimacy is possible in your own space, when you have the possibility to be in your own cosmos, be it as small as it is, then you you are in a safe position, and so then you have the choice to go to the kitchen and to use this communicative area. And this little keyword, safe, that I just mentioned, will bring us over to Wenke's, because we are, of course, not only talking about atmosphere, it's also an issue of safety. Wenke.
And this I need. Hello, hello, Brooks. Oh. Okay, sorry, this was actually your part. Okay, so just some small images inside the shared apartments. Yes, a common kitchen and a barrier-free bathroom, private room in the shared apartments where we've designed as a sample only for one room furniture. So in reality, it looks more like this. But we appreciate it very much when... is it working? Sounds strange. We appreciate it very much when the people create their own home, of course. Yeah? So, yeah. This is a photo of the opening of the LOVO project. And as many of you know, Berlin is a place where queerness is not only accepted more than in other places in the world. It's also it's celebrated in the nightlife, in the clubs, in the bars, and even now also in the last years more and more in art spaces and on the streets. It's very present. So, but nevertheless, there is discrimination, microaggressions, and violence against queer people. So, in the last few months, have taken place 2 Nazi demos directly near to the house. But last time the Nazis got only 200 meters away because of a huge counter demonstration, which was great in a way, but yeah. So, but also a lot of police presence. So here we are in a common kitchen of the shared apartment. This resident wears a mask because he doesn't want to be recognized. So a question we very often discussed during the process was how to create a safe space.
Let's take this.
Okay. Hello. Better? Yeah. How to create a safe space for this vulnerable group of people, and that they feel protected without losing the opening and welcoming character of the house, and without that the people feel locked in or isolated anyhow. Yeah. So I think many of you know the safer space idea. Safer with R, and these spaces have a higher awareness and sensitivity of in terms of discrimination, but they are not totally safe. Yeah, to make our house 100% safe would have meant to erect, I think, high fences or walls around the whole property, which we didn't want, of course. And on the right, you see the entrance from the street. And then you enter the space on the left, the passageway, to the open staircase and the yard and garden. And according to the safer space concept, we used transparent or translucent and permeable materials, like a fine but strong steel mesh and perforated metal shield in nice colors and a lot of glass. So here you see the generous window openings, continuous balconies, to open the house not only to the neighborhood, but also to the urban nature, to the sun and light. And yeah, this is Okay, next one, sorry. Okay. Many different people have access actually to the house because of the cafe, as Christoph said, yeah, and also the upper floors who are rented on the free market and the store. So it's important, I think, to avoid stigmatizing the people and the house in general. And I think the safer space concept is about fostering an environment that promote a meaningful dialogue, yeah, between inside and outside, always with the aim of enhancing the understanding of diversity for all who are involved. So our next LOVE is a LOVE Plus, so-called. It's our current project, and it's a house for around 50 queer people living together. It's situated also in a nice residential area in the old Berlin West City, also near a train station, and it's a kind of extension from the zero LOVE building. This was an existing building converted in 2011 by the Schwulenberatung, this organization. And yeah, we have here also a mix of different living forms, different groups of queer people, and different forms of apartments. And the special thing here is that we have also very, very young people, teenagers, and students, and also people in the middle age, and also people, really elderly people in need of care. So this is a rendering. You see, we have this time once again this open staircase between the two parts of the building. You see it here, yeah. The staircase is open and area, and here we have this open corridors again. Yeah. So it's not ready yet. Yeah, we are in the middle of the construction process now, and here you can see the shell of the building. This time we had a little bit more money and more. And above all, more space, so we are able to offer more community or common spaces. The following images will guide you a bit through the construction site, not ready yet, how I said. For instance, we have underground parking only for bicycle, not for cars. Yeah, our great workers. And yeah, big space for events, open staircase. And this facade is a reuse facade made of reuse windows and doors. Yeah, the upper terrace not ready yet. And yeah, this time the first to the fourth floor is built with wood. We were in the beginning, we were a bit afraid of this massive wood pillars, yeah, and because we are always trained to do it very slender and things, yeah, but now I think it's really, it feels really great. It's a little bit like a forest or a row of trees when you walk through. So construction site was also, this wooden construction was very nice to feel and to go through. It was like a stage design in a certain stage. So, yeah, our workers did a great job also here. And yeah, the apartments once again accessed by these outside corridors. And this is not only for access, it's also a place to spend really time and to with your neighbors or for informal or intended meetings. So this is a special type, this cluster apartment. I don't know, many of you know what it is, I think. And we have 8 single units, 70 square meters each, and a huge common space, and at this time also 4 entrance doors, also 3 doors to the apartment, 1 to a kind of guest room. The common space here is divided in a spacious kitchen, dining room, living room, guest room. And it's a gradual transition from private to common to semi-public, which is open corridors, and the yard to public on the street. And here you can see this wonderful space after finishing the wooden work. This is this common space here in the cluster apartment. And here's a short look into in a private unit. Maybe one detail, you have in the private unit, you have a very mini bathroom, and we put the sink outside from the bathroom, so it makes the space, also the living room, larger, while the bathroom is more small. And I think these small details are also very important for the people in everyday life. Yeah? So this time we made very good experience with the colors of the LOVO project. So this time we go a bit wilder and have a lot of different colors, and we made samples ourselves on the construction site. And when I came home one evening, I thought, I know now where these colors come from, yeah, because it seems it's this combination of pink, violet, lila, orange is really the color combination for queer feminism, and also the Wild Things poster, yeah, is made of this color. So back again at the LOVO opening photo, we hopefully will open the new project in the beginning of the next year, I think, and so yeah, stay tuned. But I'm not ready yet, sorry. Now, I think it was a lot, and many of you, also it was a lot of information now, also the panel before and so, and I would like to use the last couple of minutes to share a moment of silence with you. Maybe this is a bit surprising, but yeah, I would like to do it. First, can you put all your handies aside, or what distracts you, what could distract you? Make yourself as comfortable as possible on your chairs. Could you hear me also like this, if you are in silence? Yeah, it's better. So, and then slowly close your eyes, please. First, try to connect to the silence. It's never totally silent. Listen to all the sounds inside the room. There are almost no. Then you can expand your listening outside. And just accept all what you hear without wanting to know what it is or where it comes from. Just a deep acceptance of all what is right now. And now take a gentle and deep breath into the belly, into the chest. Breathe as slowly as you can. I heard recently that our breathing rate doubled if you compared with 100 years ago. So be slowly. And important is that the out-breath is longer than the in-breath. Relax your shoulders, relax your belly. Let your eyeballs drop down. The body is always present in the present moment, while our mind or brain somewhere else, mostly in the past or in the future. Try to turn your attention inwards. Like you discover an unknown space. Isn't it also spatial, architectural experience? The body, it's you, it's me, it's us living in community. How we relate to our body is crucial for how we relate to others, to the ecosystem and to the planet. Someone's coming in. It doesn't matter. Can you feel the energies of the other bodies around? Can you feel our nervous systems co-regulate? A single sound can also enhance the silence. Before and after. Can you feel how the boundaries between individual and collective being are blurring a little bit? This state is called interbeing in Buddhism, actually. Interbeing means connection to yourself and all other beings around you. And I think resting is resisting our times, resisting the hustle culture. We are taught to optimize, to push, to perform all the time, but not to soften, not to feel, not to be in our bodies in a way that feel safe, real, and alive. And now, as if we were using a dimmer switch, slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. Thank you for being part of this experiment. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for being with me. And it was just a teaser. Yes, actually a lifelong practice to coming into the body again. And now I pass on to Theo. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, thank you for clapping. I was falling asleep. So, or whenever I close my eyes, I'm off. I'm out. Well, it was a nice nap. So where we are. Next speaker, Bernadette Krejs. I'm very happy to introduce Bernadette. Oh, yes. Bernadette is from Vienna, working at the Technical University, where we also gave studios together. Bernadette made her doctor thesis in what?
Visual culture.
Visual culture. Was a study on Instagram, how Instagram communicates architecture and how it influences loops back to architecture. And she's part of the queer feminist collective Claiming Spaces, co-founded the activist research practice Palace of Unlearning, where she collaborates with various institutions, including Fundación Mies van der Rohe in Barcelona, Oslo Architecture Triennial, Irish Architecture Foundation Dublin, Design Academy Eindhoven, and the DAZ Deutsches Architekturzentrum in Berlin. Bernadette, the floor is yours. I'm very curious what you will tell us.
Me too. Hey, thank you, Wenke, for giving us this break and breathing. I think this was really nice. And I'm based at the Technical University at the Department for Housing, and sometimes I'm very frustrated that what we build is very normative. So I think projects like yours are really inspiring and makes hope for me. Thank you for sharing that. I will speak today about Palace of Unlearning, which is a practice I founded together with my colleague Max Utech. And it's very weird to show a picture of myself here, but I wanted to bring in Max because everything we will talk about today I developed or shared together with Max, and he can't join us today because he's currently in Paris and preparing an exhibition opening. We founded this kind of practice in 2022 because we were colleagues at the Department of Housing and we both feel this kind of discomfort practicing architecture and being an educator, reproducing a kind of normative, harmful knowledge as well. As we all know, the building sector is causing more than 40% of CO2 emission. And architecture is in some way a partner in crime. So we had the question for us, what are we doing here at this institution? And out of that, we founded this kind of, we call it an activist research practice and collaborated with a couple of institutions and were teaching at different institutions. So we borrowed us the word of unlearning. Many great people worked with this term, but for us, it was very helpful to situate our knowledge in some way. So for us, learning is not about forgetting or canceling. It's more really about choosing another system we want to work, practice, think, or act together. And also that it comes along with that we know our privileges and also that we in some way considering giving us these privileges followed by loss as well. We saw this kind of unlearning not as a weakness. We read at that time Preciado's book, Apartment of Uranus, and this kind of quote was very helpful for us where he writes, "The crossing is a place of uncertainty, of the unobvious, of strangeness. It's not weakness, but a power." And in some way in our practice, we also saw that this kind of power has something which really could open the field of architecture, also make it more diverse, integrate more voices. And it's not about that we are not allowed to build anymore or that we have to include someone. It's more that it's really getting richer and could be also a chance for our field to think things differently. We see it also as a call for action to involve ourselves, and you reminded us as well that we have a body and that we are not just observers or planners rearranging things. It's about, like Audre Lorde taught us, the transformation of silence into language and action. We also see our practice as a feminist practice, and Elke Krasny writes here, feminist spatial practices are multidimensional and multifaceted expressions of thinking and acting with an aim to build spatial justice. And I think the term of spatial justice is something very important also to integrate that in our practice. So we try to find a certain kind of definition what Palace of Unlearning is. We said Palace of Unlearning is interested in cracks and glitches where the others emerge through querying, hacking, negotiating, and irritating static conditions to create an architecture of empathy, solidarity, collectivity, multiplicity, secularity, and generosity. And coming from the field of architecture, these terms are normally not part of our practice. As we said, we had the luck to collaborate with some institutions, and I wanted to show or share 3 projects. One we did together, as Theo mentioned, with the Fondation Mies van der Rohe. We called it Glitching Mies. We did it 2023 and collaborated with them. This was our image where you can see that we are always very much interested where in very linear narratives these kind of glitches are popping up. And you can see here the marble of the Barcelona Pavilion trying to find these kind of glitches. Studying architecture, you're bothered every semester with the Barcelona Pavilion at that icon of modernist architecture. And I don't want to speak about the quality of the building. It's more that the narrative around the building is a very linear one. It's connected with the success story of Mies van der Rohe. And as we all know, they were both Lili Reich and Mies van der Rohe conducted to do the building. But in the end, I mean, recent research brought her in again. But the success or the idea that Mies is this mastermind of architecture was very much connected also with the visual representation of the building. So the wide publishing of it, exhibition at MoMA, his networks with Siegfried Gidden and so on. So the wide publishing of the pavilion also created this kind of narrative around his, let's say, success story as an architect. So we were very interested to work with this building, and what we did was we made some spatial interventions, let's say some irritations. We rearranged things in the pavilion, brought into other materials, other colors, like you mentioned also before in your project. We installed this very big furry bed made out of fake fur. We installed this curtain, and there was a very nice moment when the chief curator said, should we remove Mies' velvet curtain? And we said yes, and then they put in this very cheap internet print. We also made this tentacular being. It's Kolbe's statue of this female exposed body, and from all the viewpoints you could see her. And we thought it's not a male figure, not a female figure, not an animal, it's a being, and she has these many arms now dancing in the pool. We also brought in symbols of domesticity, like this shower in the pavilion, because every traces that we have a body or that our body needs something is erased in the pavilion. Even in the floor plans, the reconstruction we can visit now in Barcelona, they removed the staircase to the cellar because it's not a symbol of representation. So we thought we wanted to bring in also things our body needs. And there was also a closet of embodied knowledge where visitors could bring things and hide it there or make it very visible. And I mean, this was quite strong what we did, but still the narrative and the images of the pavilion are quite strong. So we started to working together with two performance artists. This is Chase, he's coming from ballroom culture in Barcelona. And there was also Iva Zapata, he's also a performance artist, and together we explained them our concept, and it was very beautiful because they catched up our concept and worked with their bodies with the installations we did there. So here you can see these are snapshots during the performance. Even if they look very glossy, it was really during, they were performing, and they began dancing with the statue. This is Iver, he was working a lot with the materiality in the pavilion, and did a very nice audio piece. And there were a lot of people coming to the pavilion, friends, lovers, collaborators, and very different bodies entered the pavilion. And in the end, there were also, we created images which maybe also brought in new narratives or other narratives around this place. I think it's very hard to understand the project just by the images. So there's also a video I want to show you. How do I switch there? And maybe we can just have a short oh, it's not very good quality.
I just fade away. I just fade away.
When someone has rejection from their mother and father or their family, they search for someone to fill that void. I know this for experience because I've had kids come to me and latch hold to me like I'm their mother or like I'm their father because they can talk to me and I'm gay and they're gay, and that's where a lot of that baldness and the mother business comes in. Because their real parents give them such a hard way to go, they look up to me to fill that void.
Hello? Get into it. My folks and bring all the trade to the yard. Damn right, it's cunty and soft. Damn right, it's cunty and soft. I'm grand prize, you already lost. My folks and bring all the trade to the yard. Damn right, it's cunty and soft. Damn right, it's cunty and soft. I'm grand prize, you already lost. I wanna sit next to you on the bus. Fantasize about you busting a nut. Walk on up, sit on down. 404 and it's going downtown. I've been on you for a while. Every time I think about you, I smile, but I can't tell you my fantasy. Miss Jackson is so nasty.
Ballroom is gay Hollywood.
So this was the other performer. And I will skip it here.
Towards bodies.
But you have the opportunity to just watch it online. It's on YouTube. I want to close this project with a quote which was by Yver, inspired by Donna Haraway. So this is the quote if you want to watch it in full length. It's really beautiful. And Yver said, "It matters which images create images. It matters which spaces give space. It matters which desires generate desires. It matters which bodies hold bodies. It matters which noises make noise. It matters which bodies talk to which bodies." We also tried a bit to implement this kind of practice into teaching. As I said, I also want to show, there's a lot of unpaid work also behind these projects. So Max and I were doing all the mounting by ourselves. And we tried coming back to our working place, which is the Technical University, a public school, also trying to integrate this idea of unlearning into studio teaching. So we set up a design studio, also called Palace of Unlearning, with 28 master design students at our school. And we really wanted to place the question in the room, what are we learning? How do we learn? In which spaces do we learn? Who is empowered to speak? Who stays invisible? And we wanted to really open this dialogue with the students. Bell Hooks was in our mind, where she says the classroom remains the most radical space of possibility in the academy. And in some way we tried in this studio to provide a space where someone is willing to share knowledge, because there are a lot of knowledges, embodied knowledges of our everyday academic knowledge, and we tried to create an atmosphere where you're willing to share this knowledge. So we started with a collective dinner, which was an awkward moment at our department, a dinner at night. Everybody brought something to eat. And we then knitted and developed pillows to situate yourself differently in the institution, to choose other possibilities, and then a chair to learn. We created a lot of models, building projects, also questioning the idea of authorship or of the one final best design. We did a lot of imagining and drawing how we could live together. We also left the institution and lived or worked for a week in a social housing structure in Vienna, also reminding us that when we came there, we also displaced people who have already been there, but we created this box, for example, to have a space where we could connect with others, which provided us with food and drinks. There was a nail salon and a lot of chats and talks also with the people living there. Short before the semester ended, and normally the ones of who studied architecture, they are their final grits with final juries. So it's a very stressful atmosphere. We went camping to Prague, where we collaborated with the art university, living together with the students here in this park of the school, and debating about our projects in nature, cooking together and discussing it. And then we returned back to the Technical University, and we made a big exhibition called the Revue of Unlearning, where we booked the biggest space we have at our school, because we wanted to really show what we did, show our journey, and really share that with the public and not remain in a classroom invisible. There were a lot of beautiful projects. I just want to show some of them. One was called Housework, addressing labor conditions in architecture. It was a performance performed with red bead, and coming from architecture, we are very detached from our bodies. So it was really a great thing that the students performed for 2 hours during the exhibition opening, and addressing that labor or the being detached from the project, which is maybe at the end here also leaves traces on your body, on your mind. There was another project dealing with rest, with napping, with is there also time out, and you could enter this installation, which was an ASMR installation. There was a students collecting everything we used during the semester, from printed papers to Google shared space, storage space, and also seeing which kind of resources do we use also in a studio setting. And there was a knitting project about harassment at architecture schools, where they developed this kind of costume, which is a Bärentierchen, which is the most robust animal on earth. It can survive in space and in heat. And if the conditions are getting too harsh at your institution, you can take on this costume. There was also a project called Trans Spaces. It was a very personal project by a student going through her own transition during the semester, sharing this experience with us. It was this translucent space, very fragile but very strong in the space, and you could enter it and then see the kind of networks and support systems and informations around transing spaces. There was also a group that decided not to do a project by their own. They made this archive of unlearning, collecting everything we did during the semester and sharing this with the public. In the end, we ask ourselves, normally, as I said, there are these experts, juries of experts, and we decided how to end a semester like this. And we decided that the students will give tours to the exhibition and had a conversation about the exhibition. As you can see, TU Wien is a quite conservative patriarchal institution, and this semester was the possibility to open and share fears, concerns, hope, whatever. And it was a very intense semester, but I think we are still now really friends and connect with each other. And I will close, I'm nearly finished, with a current project we are working on, again with the same title. It's an exhibition we're preparing at LOVO Berlin. That's the Deutsche Architekturzentrum Berlin. The opening will be on the 19th of June. Happy if you join us there. Again, it's a kind of a playground, a testing site, a breeding ground to collaboratively discuss what architecture otherwise, an architecture of empathy and solidarity, would be. We created some kind of desire machines where this kind of thinking and acting together could take place. We collaborate with a lot of people, so it's not about us as curators, it's more about sharing thoughts in this space. And there will be a long curtain swinging to the space with other people who already worked intensively on queer spaces and queer strategies. We also invited again our students, and this is a project we did at students at Design Academy Eindhoven, who developed the idea of the tentacular being further and will contribute this kind of pillow being. I will end with Sarah Ahmad with this quote: Feminism is a world that fills me with hope, with energy. It brings to mind loud acts of refusal and rebellion, as well as the quiet ways we might have of not holding on to things that diminish us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernadette, for this wonderful lecture. The third person I want to, or the third person exactly because we were the fourth person I want to introduce today is Elio Choquette. They gave a workshop today. Elio is from Montreal, Canada, and I think it's best if you introduce yourself, because I think it's a wonderful story what you have and how Elio is an architect. Yes, please.
Hi, yes. Just gonna sit here, I guess. Yeah, hi. I'm Elio, I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a queer, disabled, trans person from Montreal, also known as Tioh'tià and Mooniyang, in respectively Ganyan Kahaga and Abishnamoan. And So what I do, yes, I'm an architect. I'm also an artist. I received a grant 2 years ago for a project that's called Here We Will Be, which is an archive that documents queer and trans joy through film, photography, poetry, and just different archival work. I work mostly with film photography. I'm also not, I didn't learn photography in school, so it's very much like intuitive. And I think a lot of my work in general is very intuitive. My work as an architect is as a consultant in universal and inclusive design, mostly for the past few years. So yeah, I'm very passionate about accessibility as a disabled person and as someone who's, just passionate about uplifting marginalized voices. And I gave a presentation this morning that was called Transing Architecture, Undesigning Diversity. And the idea that how we can use, very briefly, how we can use queer liberation and community projects and just being as a way to find a new framework for architecture and the evolution of design practices. So,
yeah, thank you very much. The idea is that we have a panel discussion here within us, I guess, briefly, and then we can open it to the public. Elio, since you did not present, I'm curious what questions you would have to the others.
I mean, I thought your projects were really, really interesting. I love seeing projects also in different contexts and countries, and also loved I really wish I had a design studio like this in school. That sounds so fun, so much more fun than a lot of the studios I did. Also because it's thought-provoking and it kind of challenges the way we do architecture. So was this architecture students that were studying? And and were they was this before they went to become architects, or is it part of a program for more academic? And how did that if that was for future architects, how did they react to to this new way of learning and unlearning architecture?
So we have a bachelor and master students. So these were master students, are being I think somewhere in the middle of their masters, nearly doing their diploma. And I think it was a very unusual semester because normally I'm also teaching very conventional studios as well. But this was really the wish to really recalibrate in some way what are we doing here. And I think it was an experiment for everybody, also for us, because we also switched roles, and we also thought at the beginning we are all the same, but we weren't, because we came with privileges as teachers, grading them in the end, because that's the rule of the institution, we have to do it. So it was very intensive, but I think also a very beautiful moment, because it really, in some way, even if there was not big concept behind it, it was possible that everybody was willing to talk about, concerns, fears, moments of joy. And I think it was also for the students an exception. But what the good thing is, we are really big public school. We have 6,000 architecture students. So you can also do things which people don't really know what you're doing. So I think if our dean had known what we are doing, it wouldn't be allowed. But being in such an institution or apparatus, it's possible just to do something because there's so much going on. I think in the end, there was a lot of visibility, and there was a fun fact. We also were awarded with the best teaching award for gender-sensitive teaching at TU Wien for the whole technical university. But I think it was a lack that they don't have any gender issues and any gender teaching formats. But you really got a trophy for it.
That's so. I love that so much. And wow, 6,000 students. I feel Canada is a very small country, so we're only 37 million people, I guess. So it's very small, and for the big sort of area that we have, and especially I feel the architecture. It's interesting because Canada is also very dual to French English, and the way we do things in Quebec is different than the rest of Canada, and each province has their own specificities. But I feel this word of architecture in Quebec is so small, and it's focuses so much on the technical aspect that I would love that there's more creativity like that, because I do feel that there's a danger to like just focus on the technical aspect of architecture, especially as you go further into like becoming an architect, and keeping this kind of like fun and also like provoking and challenging what architecture, what design is. I think it's very important, and love to see that.
Sticking to the technical, would you also have questions to Wenke and Christoph?
I was just thinking about also, I love the project. I was wondering, like, this was, such a good project that like you could advocate for inclusion, like in building it in the actual layout and design. I was wondering how you do that in other projects that are not as open as this one, like other projects you work as architects. Is this something that like you try to do for every project you do, or was this specific to this one?
It works, yeah. Yeah, first I wanted to say, for me, it's always also a question how, also in the universities, there is a great conscious now, I would say, in many places, also in Germany. I heard this is the experiment and doing a lot of very progressive things. But then if you come to reality, if you are really in the office and you have really to build a building, which is a huge, complex thing, then it's such a yearning gulf between these two things, and I'm always struggling with this, I must say, because for our new project, I think we worked for 4 years now for this, or 6. Oh my God! so it's a lot of very boring but stressful work, of organizing and fighting for stuff, and it has a lot to do with money and so on, so it's. And this is, really, really hard sometimes. To not forget your idols and what you really wanted to do, actually. Mm-hmm. So this is for me a real question, how we could bring more together, and anyhow in praxis too. And until now, it's also the feminist thing. I'm the only woman at the table, maybe, and such things. The whole patriarchal approach, and the technocratic approach, and rational, no feelings, no fun. No fun we have sometimes. Okay, but what you actually, maybe Chris, you want to say something to the other question? Or?
So we have a little collaboration with the professor of the University of Montreal for 2 years. She's very interested in the LOVO project, and it's actually, I like what they are doing in the studio. They have a studio for 2 years about...
Which professor?
Irina Latek. Yeah.
Yes, I know her.
And she has a studio on what's it called, Wenke? It's about housing. It's about refugees all the time. And so, because you're saying you wish there would be more experimental, so there is also interesting stuff going on there. Now, when you were referring to us because of the technical part, first I thought, oh, why? So we are the technical guys, okay. But what I think, when I thought about it for 1 second, I think it gives you creativity when you know about the technical terms, when you know about the legal stuff a little bit, about the financial stuff. Then I think you have the tools to convince the client also in harsh situations, say, no, these colors are 4 different colors, that's expensive. No, it's not expensive because we found a way of doing it. And so I think I want to make a little bit advertise for the boring stuff in university also, because it gives you the tools for creativity. I'm so sure about that. So there has to be a mixture. If not, we are on this theoretically sphere, but if you have both skills, so then that's also the fun part of being architect, I think, that you have to have your dreams, your theoretical sphere, and you can go and build and talk about the crane and the concrete.
I mean, I agree. I relate to that a lot as, someone who is not in academia for this reason also, because I find that like it's easy. Well, I mean, it's so necessary to think and to have like utopias and like really like explore ideas. And you're right. Also, like, how do we put that in practice? And I think that what I'm sad about sometimes is that I find architects who like lose this fun or like his creativity. At least in my experience, like I find architects who are like maybe lose the curiosity or the challenge that we find in architecture school. We're always talking about like, you know, like challenging each other, like pushing the boundaries of what architectural design means. And then because of the way the architecture world is organized, I feel like I find that a lot of architects kind of become a little blasé about some things, like inclusion, for instance, or accessibility. And for me, it's like something I'm really passionate about, and also like love thinking about how, like, you know, queer liberation as a framework for architecture, and also, but how do we do this? And like inclusive design is something that is within our grasp, and like how we can build in like structures like you've been doing, like building something that is better and thinks about like, I really love the thing that you said at the beginning about who are we doing this for? Is it something we decided is needed, or is it something actually needed? Yeah, I think that's very important. Yeah.
Do you also decline sometimes assignments? If you don't see the reason for doing it, you know, you said it's important that a project needs to serve a bigger good beyond, let's say, what the client asks. Would you also say no to a project?
It happened, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I think this has happened to everyone in the practice. We once had the situation with a classical investor who, in his funny final meeting, said, "Why are you presenting floor plans to us? The floor plans, this makes our selling department." I said, "I thought you'd do something on the facade. We give you some money for a funny, nice facade." That was the final meeting we had with this client. No, but again, I know it's easily said to start a project, but I think it's not always possible. The second project we started with the idea, but not with a real, like a developer. The LOVO, we acted as developers, which was new for us, and it's a lot of risk involved. It's a couple of million project, but the interesting thing, or the interesting experience for us architects, was it's possible. We didn't know this beforehand. But it was possible that we started a project that we had the freedom to design at the end. And so this is what I want to advertise a bit more. It's not only the big players, they have too much power in my understanding. And this, when I say in my understanding, I don't understand why the world is like this. We look with envy to Vienna. I'm sure not everything is gold, but you have these like huge communal housing players. It's not only the private market. In Germany, it's the other way around. We have some communal players and some co-ops, Genossenschaften, but it's the minority. And I have no explanation why is it the case like this. Because when Wenke said with the second project we had a little bit more money, yeah, please don't tell our client that we see it this way. But it's true, because the Schwulenberatung, together with us, they were experienced enough to say we can do this ourselves. We do not need a Bauträger, we don't need a project developer. So these 20, 30, 40% of revenue that they put on top of it sometimes, we could put into the wood construction and stuff. Of course not the 40%, but it's more expensive than the conventional way.
I would like to open the discussion to the public. Do you have questions to the panel about the presentations?
So thank you very much to this great day. I think we're oscillating between theory and practice, and this can be great and also maybe difficult thing to do. And I was just maybe on both speakers' positions or also in general. I mean, I know Bernadette very well. You know, I'm also working on unlearning questions, really very much from a post-colonial question. And you mentioned Spivak, you know. And then I was just wondering how like when your research institute or group, how you match a post-colonial decolonizing feminist approach with queering, and how this is in your approach in your work. And for the practice position, I was wondering if you want to share some unlearnings from practice, like maybe how the navigating between users, maybe we don't have much relation to, what is, maybe also rethinking what is housing, what does government rules allow, what does the management organization want. So maybe from this negotiation process, if you reflect, if you would like to share some unlearning of refugee queer housing perceptions we have.
I mean, I think I can answer that very quickly. You know, my institution, my department where I'm working, these topics are nearly not tackled there. It's the department the Institute for Architecture and Design, and still it's very driven by how we learn to do architecture, which is very connected to objects and to the idea, or to in relation to a canonized knowledge production. And still, when it comes to power or money or jobs, contracts, we are still very narrow who is allowed to enter this institution. So I think we have a lot of students from Turkey, we have a lot of students from ex-Yugoslavia, but still when we look where power is located at an academic institution, then it's very German-speaking white male, I would say. So I think there are certain courses, and you, of course, are also doing courses in these directions, but it's very connected to certain individuals, and then contracts are ending, and the topic is gone. Yeah? I think there's not much content in the curriculum that we say we have to work on that.
Yeah, one thing I came up and you spoke is the theme of accessibility. This is for us. Yeah, sometimes it's really hard because we were trained to make a great building, a very well proportioned, very good space and often we make, for instance, we make little steps. So 1 or 2 steps is wonderful. It's a wonderful mean to divide a space, or so. And we developed also new type of housing with 1 step in, and it's allowed in Germany inside an apartment, no, not in a public space anymore. But and so this is for me what I think. Last time we can't do it anymore, because it's not okay. So and this is, but for us, sometimes very hard, because it's a big architectural quality, and so. But for me, it's also I really like this to learn new, and to really to accept this is access for all, and this is the most important point. So,
yeah, for sure. I think that even as I had to unlearn so much because architecture is still very anchored in patriarchal societies, and in a way that you were just saying, you're often still one of the only women around the table. I don't know many trans architects, if any, and in Quebec I know maybe another non-binary person in architecture. I don't know many people. There's still a lot of construct about architecture that are so rooted in patriarchy and able-bodied. And when you look at Le Corbusier and everything he did about all the proportions are for tall men, and when you look at all proportions and everything. And I was having these conversations right before about how so often we think of accessibility as an afterthought, and that's what part of my workshop too, is how inclusion, accessibility are, you don't build it in as early design. You think about the design, and then after that you like slap on it like a ramp, and that's often what happens. And it's unfortunate. And for me, that's why I like advocate a lot for universal design and inclusive design. And for me, inclusive design goes a little further than universal designs. It's instead of just so universal design is planning facilities or designs that can be accessible for the greater number of people, regardless of age, abilities, and capacities. So, you know, like, so people, like elders, families, disabled people, all can use the space in the same way, or at least they can access it. And inclusive design for me goes further. It's like beyond just age, capacities, abilities, also gender identity, sexual orientation, cultural background, and social status, and like who is excluded from spaces. Yeah, and so, but there's so much unlearning that goes just in that, and like trying to plan space from the beginning, like with a lens of like, how can we make this space for everyone, and not just for like our very limited understanding of like, who is going to use this building. I think that like in general, like at least in Canada, we have this approach that like not all buildings have to be accessible, because like when you're retrofitting older buildings, you don't actually need to make them accessible all the time. And new buildings have to be, but it's still like what's in the code is like, oh, you have to have one, like 50% of entrances that are universally accessible. And yeah, all that to say, it's like there's just a lot of unlearning. It's a lot of rethinking for me, even as like someone, like I had, based on my own identities, had to just shift the way I was thinking about architecture, because I was like, oh, I'm realizing I move through space differently, or there's some things about space that like I react to differently. And it's hard because architecture is a very rigid, like so many sets of rules, and it's hard to fight them from inside.
Thank you, thank you. We have to stop now because time is running out. Thank you very much for coming from Vienna, Berlin, Montreal. If there are more questions, the speakers are around. Thanks a lot, and yeah, let's have a 5-minute break.